Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. This is Lizzie and Justin from Thirdspace. We are here. It's our 415th week of Turning Towards Life, and you are all so welcome to be with us. And we're going to do in a moment our ordinary thing, which is, Lizzie, you have brought a wonderful source from a writer who has brought us such excellent, deep, inviting writing before, and we're going to place it in the middle between you and I, and then we're going to open a conversation where we read and see what happens for the next little while. We've done this many, many times, and it's always an extraordinarily rich conversation, and it's wonderful to be here with you, Lizzie, and also to have so many people around us. I want to say thank you to the person who told me this week, if you're listening, you'll know who you are, who said that he walks with us in the woods and we're a guilty pleasure. And I'm glad that we're a pleasure of any kind, this conversation. So whether you're walking in the woods or you're hoovering or you're listening very intently or you're watching us on Turning Towards Life, where you can also support us, or on YouTube or in a podcast, whatever. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thanks, Justin. And I want to say thank you to Ingrid, who I have met in various lovely settings. And this poem that I'm going to bring is from her book called What Holds Us. And I'm just holding up to the screen that what it looks like is a lovely blue book. And in the middle, there's a picture of a woman with a beautiful kind of dark red, kind of slightly ball dressy kind of thing, running in the wild in amongst on a heath or something with lovely blue skies with clouds. And when you said guilty pleasure, Justin, I thought, my goodness, how pleasurable it is to be able to ask ourselves the kind of questions that Ingrid poses to us through her poetry, and also how sometimes it does feel like a bit of a guilty pleasure, because do we really get to ask these questions about gratitude and joy? Do we really get to, as human beings, have to, what do we have to put down and what do we have to do in order to have that supposed luxury of asking these big questions? So I love it that you started that way, Justin. So this is a wonderful poem by Ingrid called Questions for Discerning What is Timeless and True. And I'm going to read. And then we'll listen to you, Justin. So, when mist settles thick on the water as far as the eye can see, may you hold yourself in generosity and ask, what do you endlessly dream? When the first star breaks its light through the darkest evening sky, what is the wish that flutters in the temple of your heart? When rain dances with joy on the roof above your head, what do you feel most grateful for? And for what do you give thanks? When the catbird settles on a branch nearby, tips his head back and sings, what sweet urgency pours from your life into the living, breathing day? When you stoop to pick up an acorn that has fallen along your trail, allow yourself to wonder, what seeds do you plant and grow? When the autumn leaf lifts on a swirling current of wind, what journey are you missing? What adventure do you long to begin? When the present insight slips into the vast eternal realm, what do you still remember in the very bones of your soul? When the morning sun wakes you and asks for your finest gift, what do you pull from your infinity to give and open to and give?
Thanks, Lizzie. And with thanks to Ingrid for this writing. This is Questions for Discerning What is Timeless and True. When mist settles thick on the water as far as the eye can see, may you hold yourself in generosity and ask, what do you endlessly dream? When the first star breaks its light through the darkest evening sky, what is the wish that flutters in the temple of your heart? When rain dances with joy on the roof above your head, what do you feel most grateful for, and for what do you give thanks? When the catbird settles on a branch nearby, tips his head back and sings, what sweet urgency pours from your life into the living, breathing day? When you stoop to pick up an acorn that has fallen along your trail, allow yourself to wonder, what seeds do you plant and grow? When the autumn leaf lifts on a swirling current of wind, what journey are you missing? What adventure do you long to begin? When the present insight slips into the vast eternal realm, what do you still remember in the very bones of your soul? When the morning sun wakes you and asks for your finest gift, what do you pull from your infinity to give and open to and give?
Thank you, Justin. Gosh, in your reading, I'm so taken by this invitation to allow what is around us. Just anew, I hadn't really seen this yet, but this feeling that Ingrid's relating something happening. So the first star breaks its light, or the rain dances with joy, or the catbird settles, or you stoop to pick up an acorn, and receiving those things as invitations for these questions to come. And so I'm really moved by this invitation to take these invitations of ordinary things like picking up acorns or watching a star move in some way, and then these be the questions that come from them. And like I was saying in the bit where we were just introing then, Justin, what happens when I actually ask myself these questions? And when you were reading to me, I felt this kind of clearing in me, like all my things I'm concerned about move to the side, all of the to-dos, all of the what's happening next move to the side. And then this kind of eruption in my chest of like an achy kind of, oh yeah, what is it that I have some kind of insight, but there's something in my soul, my bones that endures. What's that thing? And I'm so appreciative of Ingrid's self-knowledge in a way, Ingrid's self-contact with her own life, where she knows to invite us into this space. And she can feel how to do that through her writing. And I feel like this set of questions, and it's so interesting. I've had this book for years, Justin, this sweet poetry book. I bought it, I think, directly from Ingrid's hands, in some space we were in together. And I've read every single poem many, many times. And as usual, it was this poem when I was looking for a source this weekend. This poem, I hadn't even turned the page down. I hadn't written a note on it or whatever. And so I feel like all of this comes to find us, both the poem itself, but this kind of way of wondering that didn't appeal to me in some part of my previous life. But currently it's like, oh, that's the poem. I have to talk to Justin about that, Turning Towards Life. It's like, it's got me. And it feels like that's in the same realm of what is in the temple of my heart, and what do I give thanks for, and what urgency pours from my life into the living every day. What is that? And what a maybe guilty pleasure, as you were saying, it is to sit and not attend to the bills or the washing up or the things that we have to do with our lives to make them work. Not for this moment to do that, even though we will continue afterwards and do that most of the time. What is it to take these times and wonder what is really in our hearts, what's really in our deepest longings to live and to breathe and to be and to do in this lifetime?
No, I noticed something shift in me, Lizzie, as you pointed out the thing you've just been talking about, which is that the first part of every one of these stanzas in Ingrid's poem, it draws our attention to the world around us, not to what's in us. First to the world around us and then to what's in us. And you know what? I hadn't actually noticed. I mean, I'd read it, of course, but all of my attention was on the questions. What do you endlessly dream? What's the wish that flutters in the temple of your heart? And then you mention it, and then I noticed, and then I remembered something, which I'm now seeing might be the whole point of this conversation, which is I'm sure I'm not the only one who gets so easily into feeling separate from everything. And when I feel separate, the way that I get wrapped up in my own concerns is sort of like a kind of opposition to the world. It's exactly what I was thinking before. I was thinking about how I've been having lots of conversations over the last few weeks about how the nature of conversation on social media is, in a way, kind of breaking the world. There's some good conversation in places, but there's so much that what it does is it amplifies our hysteria and our distrust and our fear but also our kind of sense of trying to search for rightness and definiteness and all of those movements that happen. And what that does is it first has us feel very alone, and then it has us floundering around to find places to belong. And the more alone we feel, the more kind of self-referenced we get. So when I'm feeling very alone, I notice that I can bounce between, I have to kind of assert my rightness somewhere or find a way that I'm right, or maybe I'm just terribly wrong about everything. And I feel further and further away from everything and everyone. And then along comes something like this, which does something so necessary, because the way I'm taking what Ingrid writes now in the light of hearing you is pay attention first to the mist settling thick on the water. Notice the first star breaking its light through the dark evening sky. Pay attention to the rain dancing with joy on the roof above your head. Notice the catbird settling on the branch. Pick up an acorn that's fallen along your trail. And let that reach you first. And then, now that you remember that you are not separate from any of this, that all of this is you and you are this and it is calling to you and you never didn't belong in it, now ask yourself these questions. And they are such different questions from there than they are when I'm trying to answer them from fear and separateness from life itself. It's sort of Ingrid saying to us, remember that you belong to this planet first. Remember that you belong to life itself first. Now, what do you pull from your infinity to give and give and open to and give? It's a completely different question from there. The same words, it's a completely different question. And I can feel my answers in me as I settle into, oh, I'm not different from the trees outside my house, really. My answers are more alive and more genuine and less frightened and more generous. I'm less caught up in having to prove anything, but I'm definitely drawn towards what feels real and life-giving and generous and open and true. And I feel like so many more of my qualities of participation in life become apparent from there in how I answer these questions and what I might do with them than when I've got myself walled off and terrified. And in fact, and when I've allowed myself to be terrified by the language that is everywhere. So thank goodness for what you saw, and thank goodness for Ingrid's words, and thank goodness for the first star and the mist on the water and the catbird and the rain and the acorns and the autumn leaves and the morning sun.
Hey, Justin, yesterday I had a very ordinary day with my nephew and my children going to the playground and noodling about and being in that place where a little 1-year-old finds the tiniest acorn I've ever seen, or some piece of grass is the best thing ever, or whatever. It was such a sweet and ordinary day. And on the way home, I had this conversation with my nephew, who's 14, about, I said, oh my gosh, smell this rose. This is delicious. It was this lovely smelling rose. And he said, what's that saying, smell the roses, all about anyway? I said, well, that's a really good question. And I think it's about, like, if you've planted a rose and worked hard to nurture it, when do you actually enjoy the rose? Like, do you actually smell it? Or do you just take it for granted that there's a rose in your garden and carry on with your life or something? And then he said, well, isn't there a deeper meaning than that to it? I said, oh, well, yes, maybe. What do you think? He said, I don't know, like something about presence or something. And I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, something about, are you actually here? Are you even here? I said, yeah, I think that might be something to do with it as well. And so when I was pregnant with my first baby, I could smell everything in a different way. And so actually with my niece and nephew, who were then, how old were they? Like 12 and I don't know, something like tweens, we would go around and do rose smelling because they knew that I really liked it. And they would say, could we come and smell the roses with you? And ever since then, I've always smelled the roses. And it feels to me like it's so possible. I know it's possible because I've been a rose smeller and a non-rose smeller. I know it's possible to walk past the roses and not take them in the spirit of Ingrid's invitation at all. Literally not even see them, let alone smell them or appreciate them or wonder about how on earth the petals got made and the shape of a rose and what does that even mean for that creation made that, you know. And I feel like this is those realms of the me that stops and actually appreciates the scent of a rose, and they're all different in this really subtle way, versus the me that has my head down, staring at the cracks in the pavement, worrying about stuff, doing all the things that I will forever do, I'm sure, but never stopping and never feeling this connection and belonging that has me be part of everything and has the rose be an invitation to me stopping and smelling. It's such a different life. And I also know that there are times when I have to kind of make myself smell the rose because, as you say, that's like I'm so taken by whatever I'm afraid of, or I'm so taken by however busy it feels, or however many things I've forgotten and have to think about, or whatever. And in spite of all of that, I still can stop and smell them. I still can take these invitations that Ingrid's inviting us into and ask those luxurious, important, necessary, life-giving, central questions. And I don't have to feel burdensome and like I'm just a to-do list. I don't have to. I'm a human being, which means I have some choice and I have some ability to be curious and conscious about what it is that I'm doing and where I'm spending my time. And if anything, that needs cultivation. I know I'm always going to feel busy. I know I'm always going to have loads to do. I know I'm always going to, like, there's going to be stuff. Like, that's very well attended to. Very well. So how can I, even inside all of that, find my way? So I don't have to do this on a retreat or in the mountains. And as a mum of young children who's never spent a night away from them in 6 years, like, that's very unlikely right now that I can go and be in a field and reflect on my life or something, which, how amazing. But I can do this. It is mine to do in spite of the fullness of my life. And in this moment, I'm like, it must be done. This is what is enduring, what is in my bones, because that is, you know, the title of this, questions for discerning what is timeless and true. Those things that will stick around, however busy I am or not busy I am, or however old I am or not old I am, whatever that is, that feels like ridiculously important to my life.
I was so struck by something you said about you're not going to go on a retreat in order to be able to encounter this because you're a person with small children and that's primary commitment you have is to be around. And it made me think that I think that so much of this, what we're talking about here, is to do with ways that we contract away from life. So we contract away, and actually, really practical thing here, it's a bodily phenomenon. I think most of us, if we pay a bit of attention, we can feel in our bodies when we've contracted away. It's something like we got frozen or mobilized or something like that when we pull away from life. And then it's easy to have this fantasy that I'll only be able to find my way back when I go on a retreat or I tune out. Like, we imagine that the thing to do is to tune out. And I think that that comes from forgetting how we belong. So if I think that I'm separate, then all I can do if I catch that I've kind of contracted away, often in fear, I think fear has a huge part to play in this, is, well, I'm going to have to find somewhere super calm and I'm going to have to be away from life. I'm going to have to sort of zone out or meditate my way away from life. And what I hear you saying, what Ingrid is saying, is no, life is calling us back all the time. But life is waiting for us to come into contact with it. And so what it is it's contact. And there's kind of two ways in. So one is have the first star breaking its light or the rain. Where we live, Lizzie, there's lots of that around, and we can wait for it to come, or the autumn leaf, or have that be a call for us to come back. Like, use it, receive it as a way back into life. And then the parallel thing is learn to notice when our bodies have contracted away from life, and learn to participate in the process of softening back into contact. And I think I want to keep on coming back into contact and receptivity, that we don't have to do this on our own. That's the mistake. That the world is offering. I think there's this lovely line in, it's either David White or Mary Oliver, you know, the world is offering itself to our attention all the time. And when we don't feel so separate from life, the questions about how we raise our children, or how we participate in our communities, or how we wash the dishes, or what's the great longing in the very bones of our soul, they are different. We have different responses to those questions. So it seems to me this whole conversation is a call to let the world reach us, to my friend who was telling me about listening to us when walking in the woods the other day. I want to say, and the woods, you know, it's the woods is not incidental here, that the woods call to us, or the little patch of grass on the corner of the street outside our house, or the sky that's always above our heads. It calls to us so that we can come back and then respond.
And we say, yes, what is it? Tell me. And then we receive the answer to that question, because they're seeking for our attention. And all the times I haven't paid attention to a tree, or the patch of grass, or the flower poking through the wall, and I kind of want to say, sorry, I'm sorry I didn't do that. The world is asking to be heard and seen and received, and I may not have seen it or turned towards it. So I want to thank Ingrid for that massive invitation, and I'm going to take it into the day with me. And I want to say thank you, Justin, for being here, and for this beautiful kind of moving feeling of being alive and, as you say, contactful with life. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We love you. We're so grateful that you're with us. And we will see you next week for another episode of Turning Towards Life.
Thanks, Lizzie. Thanks, everyone.